Thank you, Reverend Rivers.
God bless you.
Yes, sir. I didn't prepare any notes today because I wanted to talk from my heart about the experience that led up to this speech. I found out Thursday morning that I lost a colleague and a friend in Clem Pinckney. He was a holy man. He had a way about him that was just so good. I woke up Thursday morning to the news that he and 8 other Charlestonians were killed in this massacre. And I did what a lot of Christians do. I prayed. Prayed for our community. Prayed for those family members. Prayed that maybe the Lord would encourage me in the right way. Touch my heart. I went to a vigil that afternoon about noon, and I heard some wonderful speeches. One was from Congressman Clyburn, who talked about Martin Luther King and his letter from a Birmingham jail, in which he talked about how if you are silent, that you are literally taking the other side. And I continued to pray about how I could be used. And I remember I went and that evening I talked with my wife. My wife is a little bit argumentative usually. And I said, what do you think about the flag? Because at this time, flag discussion was kind of starting. My initial response was, how in the world are we taking such a horrible tragedy and making a political aspect of it? And her response, and usually she talks a little bit more in an argumentative way, she said, why would you want to keep it up? And that touched my heart because I started asking myself why. A day or two went by and I talked to a couple of friends about it, and again I kept finding myself making excuses. The response of that there was a compromise was an excuse. I didn't compromise to anything. I had just gotten elected a couple of years before. I wasn't a part of that compromise. The response of that this is heritage. What heritage are we talking about? And so I found myself being challenged with those excuses that I kept responding. And I went to church on Sunday, and our Sunday school class was on the book of Mark, chapter 4, verses 4 through 8. And in that verse, it talks about the farmer sowing the seeds of a crop. It talks about the soil needing to be fertile, the time needing to be right. And my understanding was that was the Bible study that those 9 wonderful people were studying that evening with that killer. And I kept reading that, and I kept thinking about my job as a public servant, and I kept thinking about the flag and how the time is right, the soil was fertile to make a change. I reference my generation, and I know that there's a lot of people in here that have seen this flag flying for 50 some odd years, but I can tell you that my generation has not been taught to hate people based on the color of their skin. And as time has gone by, it becomes apparent that there are symbols like this that are hurtful and that need to be taken down. And so I ended up, my heart was heavy throughout this process, and I kept feeling like I needed to do something. And I woke up Monday morning and I wrote that speech, and I was at peace. And when I went and gave that speech, I was at peace. And so I didn't know how it would be perceived. I wanted to try to make an impact on my fellow colleagues in the Senate, because at that time we needed to put it on the sine die resolution. There was a process that needed to take place. So I gave that speech, but I will tell you that the response has been overwhelmingly positive. I've gotten letters, I've gotten phone calls, I've gotten emails, I've gotten text, I've gotten Facebook posts that were all telling me, thank you for finally saying what needed to be said. And so, I had one person write me to tell me that he had heard the speech, and when he was 19, he had gotten a Confederate flag tattooed on his arm, and he was making an appointment with a dermatologist. I had another person that told me that they immediately went out and took down the flag. I had another person tell me how they had, for months and years, been embarrassed about being from South Carolina, and now they were comfortable about coming back to South Carolina because they saw that people's hearts were different. And so I gave that speech not knowing what was going to occur. I didn't know that I would subsequently be here today talking to you. There is a lot of work to be done. There is more work to be done. But I think this is a wonderful step in that direction. I want to talk to you a little bit about how I think we got there. The families of those victims showed what it's like to be a Christian.